Welcome to Ministry of Reconciliation through Social Innovation, lesson number 8. We are beginning chapter 2, Holistic Engagement. As you understand the missional concept of engaging with the community, I hope you begin to contemplate God's greatest calling, commission, and commandment as the purpose of our existence. This lesson will cover the biblical methodology, the way we reach out to our community, and using biblical conceptual framework of holistic engagement. As I said, we are chosen. We are chosen by God to be His instrument, His tool as a faithful servants, to serve God and serve His people. And that's why we are chosen as a priest. Matthew 20:28 reminds us, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So this is our mandate. This is our responsibility. We are here to serve God and serve God's people. In fact, Ellen G. White reminds us the church was organized for this service, to serve God and to serve His people. This is why community outreach is not just an activity of the church, but also an attribute of our God. Our God is a missionary God. Therefore, we must be the expression of God's missional heart on earth by proclaiming the good news of salvation and demonstrating the love of God. So, once again, what is our mission? Why do we exist? What is the purpose of our existence? Whenever I visit a church, I look for, a few things, their core values, which will inspire to develop vision statement. And out of the vision statement, they can conceptualize their mission statement. So I will look for those three things: values, vision, and mission statement. And of course, I look for the bathroom. Whenever you have to go, you got to go. See, the reality is that most churches do not have clearly defined, their core values and the mission and the vision statement based on their, conviction and belief. Sometimes at most of the churches, they just list 10 commandments, fourth commandments, or list of the 28 fundamental beliefs. I am not saying that is not important. That has core, values of our belief. But local church, local entity must define their purpose, why they exist in that community. At a church that I once visited, I asked an elder, what is the mission statement of your church? He said, he was kind of joking with me, of course. He said, we believe what the General Conference believes. So I asked him, okay then, well, please tell me, what does the General Conference believe? He was also, making a light comment. He said, they believe what we believe. So we laughed together because they didn't have any mission statement. It was very unfortunate conversation regarding the mission of the local church. And he told me no one ever, questioned about that mission statement. So no one actually had, revisited, that issue. But in another church I visited, with a friend of mine who is not a, Christian. He is actually atheist. And he saw this mission statement on the wall. It says, XYZ Church proclaiming the three angels' message in Revelation 14, and continued. And that was the mission statement. And when he read that, and he looked at me and he said, what does that mean? So, I mean, I can understand where he's coming from. If I was not a Christian and I never read a Bible, and yeah, you're right, I would not understand what I just read. I mean, I get the part XYZ church. That's obvious. But what does that mean? Three angels' message. What does that mean? The Revelation 14. Yeah, obviously. But oftentimes, we talk about ourselves inside the walls of the church. And we don't have this clearly defined mission that we can reveal to people outside of the walls without explaining to them. And if we don't communicate that purpose clearly outside the walls of the church, how do we exist and become an influence in our communities? Yeah. In addition to searching for their core values, vision, and the mission statement, I also like to study their church bulletins. Yeah, to estimate the percentage of activities and financial resources that have been allocated for their inner-focused church program and versus community outreach programs. In my humble observation, the churches that I have visited, it appears 90% of our church activities are inward focused. Compared to 10% or less, if any, for community outreach ministry. I'm not saying that inward focus ministries are not important, so please don't get me wrong. In fact, we must strategically engage in discipleship development ministries. We must mentor and coach people to grow in Christ-likeness. We must equip, educate, and develop disciples who will make disciples. Yes, I believe that. But if we solely focus on having busy programs in the four walls or church activities without disciple-making focus, I think these inward-focused church activities could be challenged. In addition, we should not simply be an educational church where we invest most of our time and resource into developing head faith. A pastoral educational focus with a classroom methodology. I mean, there's a time and place for that. But if that is the only thing that we do, and also becoming a attractional church, which focuses on events, to entertain people, perhaps, even an organic, home church where all we care about is current membership growth of the, group, the congregation, and having just weekly fellowship. If that is all we do and focus on, then I think we need to really revisit the purpose of our existence and why we exist in this community. Most community outreach ministries are engaged in sporadic activities based on eventful projects. We are Adventist, but sometimes we behave as eventist. Yeah, we love to focus on and do events, except one event is not connected to the next event. We do isolated events without developing a long-term, intentional, provisional, sustainable community engagement and development. Please don't misunderstand my, perspective on, events. I'm not criticizing the importance of having events and group activities. But my concern is that, we should not be having, events for the sake of an activity, you see. But each event should be a part of the long-term commitment of community outreach ministry. So it should be a benchmark. So next 5 years, we will accomplish X, Y, Z. So every year, we do certain activities as benchmarks that we will set aside and accomplish so we can accomplish our impact. But each event should be connected to the next event to enhance the quality of a ministry and to fulfill the mission and the vision of the church in all aspects of our, church commitment, including ecclesiastical components and healthcare, educational institutions. We must engage our community intentionally, provisionally, and sustainably, not through isolated events. Therefore, we need to change the question. It's not about how do we attract people to our program. Instead, we need to ask, how do we create a faithful presence of our church, our institution, a faithful presence in our immediate communities? How do we create, lasting impact through sustainable community development and outreach ministries? How could we demonstrate our dependability and trustworthiness as an integral part of our community engagement? How could we earn the right and privilege to share our beliefs? The solution is, in my humble opinion, Christ's method. Yeah, Christ's method alone. It is about personal engagement and building relationships with the people in our community. It's evangelistical, which means proclaim the good news of salvation and demonstrating love of God. It means incarnational. We need to commit ourselves as a part of our community. Jesus moved into our neighborhood, right? So we need to be incarnational and contextual because we understand our environment. Because we understand the challenges and the resources and opportunities that exist in our community, we can provide contextual ministry, relevant ministry. And the last, we must become communal and reciprocal, holistic engagement. So it's not church to community, but church with community. So it's not about my institutional growth, but how can we transform our community as a kingdom of God? For the Lesson 8 exercise, please revisit your church ministry programs and activities and separate them in two different categories. One is inward focused, internal, focused church ministry, and versus second, outward community focused. So community engagement. So create two lists. One is the internal and the other is external. Then answer the following 4 questions through your church ministry and program, both in internal and external. Okay. Number 1, how do we create a faithful presence of Adventist church, our ecclesiastical, healthcare, and education institution, faithful presence of our existence in our immediate community? Okay. Number 2, how do we create a lasting impact through intentional, provisional, and sustainable community development and outreach ministry? Number 3, how could we demonstrate our dependability and trustworthiness as an integral part of the community engagement? And then number 4, how could we earn the right and privilege to share our beliefs?